This is DeSantis at a campaign stop in Iowa, where he spoke about liberal cities, right? And how people in liberal cities are moving to Florida, the paradise for the anti-woke. Putting aside that I think Miami had its first population decrease in years.
Yeah, and it's all old people that are moving to retire.
Or back to the woke area. I'm not sure, but either
Getting
way.
woke again.
This is like one of his...
It's like a reawokening.
The rewokening, yeah. The rewokening begins.
I'll never forget, and I bring up this anecdote a lot because I think it's indicative of DeSantis's issues. When the East Palestine rail disaster happened, Donald Trump went to Ohio and was handing out free McDonald's and water. And DeSantis was doing speeches with cop unions in cities like New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. And so, I don't know. I mean, there has been some polling that the wokeness that he centered his campaign on is kind of fading in importance with Republican voters.
Nobody cares.
And crime is on the uptick. So perhaps he's trying to ride this wave, but he does it inartfully. To use the metaphor, he falls off the surfboard.
Governed by leftist ideology and leftist politicians throughout this country, they have failed. San Francisco failed. LA failed. Illinois. How do I know? Because people move from those places, come to my state, and tell me about how bad it is. You know, sometimes I don't even believe it. I mean, I had a guy tell me, like, you know, in San Francisco, you know, they'll just defecate on the sidewalk. They use drugs out in public, no problem. And I'm like, really? Well, I happened to be in San Francisco a month or two ago, and within 10 minutes of me being in the city, I see some guy relieving himself on the sidewalk with number 2. And like, I mean, it's just, I've never seen things like this before, but it shows you this is driven by leftist ideology.
That really drops like a lead balloon. And I think, you know, part of it is also, supposedly Iowa people are really nice and this and that. But it's sort of like the problem with getting too explicit about this is sort of like the problem that Ron Paul had back in, I think it was in 2008, where he was asked a question about healthcare. And the question was like, well, so what do you do with this person? Do you let them die on the street? And Ron Paul was like, yeah. You do. That is, they made bad choices in their life and couldn't afford health insurance, and so yeah, they die. Now, it just also happened that Ron Paul had a campaign person who didn't have health insurance and got really sick. I think that became a big issue. But
that's his
fault. Point being is that I think like when you actually like walk people through this situation, it's one thing to say, it's dirty, it's disgusting, the homelessness is a problem there. But then to say, like, I'm one of the most powerful guys in the country. I am governor of a huge state. I have a lot of resources at my beck and call. And I saw someone who was so desperate that they were having to defecate on the sidewalk. And all of a sudden, like, the next thing that pops into your head, if you are even slightly sentient, and actually even try and tell yourself that you care about other people is, well, what did you do about it?
Yeah.
Did you go up to that person and say, can I help you in some way? Like, do you need services? Or did you just sort of like look at it and get back into your limo? Like, that's that moment, I think, there where people are going like, well, wait a second, this is a real human being he's talking about. And it's not some general thing. And he literally had the opportunity to help someone in desperate need. And all he's doing is using as an anecdote, like, what's he going to do if we need help?
I mean, and part of it is just like, I don't think people at the campaign rally in Iowa want to hear about someone doing number 2, like he's talking about there.
Well, yeah.
It's just like...
I think it's just too stark of an image. Like, wait a second. Why are you not talking about what we should do for that person?
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about something so explicit, so problematic, that you personally witnessed, and you're only telling that story, not like, you know what? I went to this place and I saw someone who was really in peril. And, I don't know that I can help more of those people, but my heart bled for this person and, my staffers. And there's a failure of what's going on there to take care of these people. But the funny thing is, he's trying to argue that there's a failure of government that allows for this, but he's not arguing there's a failure to help these people. Let me see if he's saying like it's a failure to sort of like
remove them.
Yeah, and I mean, but his version of government is that kind of cruelty. This is the guy that was supposedly going to represent Guantanamo Bay prisoners and was there as their advocate, but he sat with, allegedly, the torturers and sneered as they got force-fed Ensure, and when they were hunger striking because their conditions were so bad.
And wasn't even smart enough to deny it when he was asked about it. He literally said, "Who told you that?"
Yeah, I mean, it is his sneering condescension is also paired with what you describe, Sam, as like the casual cruelty. And I mean, he does it without any of the fun that Trump provides for, like, you talked about that op-ed in the Times, where I've been to those Trump rallies. There is like this sense of community for those people. They enjoy the charisma of Trump. So when the cruelty comes, it's more of like a part of the showmanship, as opposed to what DeSantis represents is like the purest form of what Republican politics are, which is abject cruelty.
And when you personalize it like this, it becomes a problem. Like, there's a reason why he denies that thing about Gitmo. About Gitmo, and it's not because he thinks he's in some type of legal jeopardy. He denies it because on some level he knows that like torture bad, torture bad, and even though I would imagine anybody in that audience in Iowa would not really care at all about the individual. But he knows torture bad, so he knows enough to like not say like, I didn't care about torture. But his assumption is there that no one in that audience cares about that human being who is in a situation where they have to take a crap on the sidewalk. And he thinks that by showing his complete indifference to it, I mean, that's what he's showing. He's exhibiting like, I am completely indifferent to the suffering of that individual, that specific individual that I saw with my own eyes, that was close enough for me to reach out and give the guy a sandwich. And what am I doing with that information? What am I doing with that experience?
Mocking him.
I'm just here to say, like, people come to Florida. And I think that, like, he is so devoid of humanity. Trump at least knows, like, that he is, like, I mean, maybe he never actually, but he's just going to talk about like the general decrepitness. There's nothing that's so big I can't even do anything about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got to be president to do something about all of this. I'm going to fix it, he says.
Yeah.
But there's not even like a word of DeSantis saying like, I'm going to fix it.
Oh, yeah. And like, I thought it was all supposed to be fixed, by the way, when Chesa Boudin was ousted. Not so much. And let's be clear, what leftist ideology or whatever he's talking about is what leftists want to do. OK, what leftists want is to make housing a right for people in those kinds of situations, to ensure that houseless people have a place to go so they can go to the bathroom in private. And if they have addiction or mental health issues, at least have it not exacerbated by having to live on the street. What promotes those things in cities is the like right-wing capitalist politics that make those cities more about being pristine tourist centers as opposed to livable situations for all of humanity, to the best of their ability. So it's not leftist ideology. It's the opposite.
Well, it gives it away when they mention places like San Francisco or whatever. If you look at like the murder rates, Florida is higher than California. Like Mississippi, the Mississippi River Delta, per capita. Mississippi River Delta is like insane, the amount of death, and they don't actually care about that. They think that's fine that people die from gun violence. It's just, can you like use it to attack Democrat cities in elections?
I mean, look.
Like Jacksonville
the
has a
bottom
lot of
line
crime
is
issues.
there is no doubt that there is an unhoused problem in some of the major cities in California. The question is like, what are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. are you going to treat these people like they're human beings and provide them housing? And if there's an argument that some of them are, have mental health issues, or they don't want to, or they have addiction issues, you address those too. There's no way to treat people for any of those things if today they're sleeping under an underpass and tomorrow they're sleeping behind some bushes. There's no way to treat them. All right, let's should we do number 10, or is that opening a can of worms?
You want to save that for tomorrow?
There's two different ones though, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. We might
we'll save that for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, folks, we did not get the phone calls today.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
I mean, we did calls on a good amount of calls on Friday, so
what a jerk.
we're not that horrible.
Tomorrow we'll do more. Fizzy drinks. Sorry for my callous comment. I didn't see it. I live in San Francisco, and the city's greatest sin is the abandonment of these people. I hate to see the disparity between rich and poor. DeSantis shows nothing but contempt for them that I think is shared by the leaders of the city. I mean, I think it's, listen, it's broadly shared in society.
Yeah, well, then, look at J.D. Vance blaming immigrants for the fact that nobody can pay rent in this country. Like, it's because they're owned by real estate. Is the simplest answer.